Third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Red hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up and way second
And welcome back to the Stupid Money Podcast. We get to talk about the time of the year where the Phillies don't really lose anymore, I guess is the best way to put it. The off season, we're about just a little more than a week and a half removed from just a week, just about a week. Yeah, it's the middle of the week here now. I forgot what day it was. It's Wednesday. But yeah, just about a week removed from the Rangers winning the World Series. So that is in the rearview mirror. Kind of glad the Rangers just came out and crapped all over the Diamondbacks. Made me feel a little better that the Phillies might not have just blown a free ring. So as bad as that is, we get to move on and look at the 2024 season. So without further ado, we will get into what we are looking at this offseason. We're going to start with some storylines here. All right, so we got John Morosi, one of the best, was kind of the first guy in the Phillies Castellanos thing a couple off seasons back, but the Phillies are interested in Sonny Gray, and something you and I have talked about, but the thing with Gray is he has a big relationship with Caleb Cotham, the pitching coach with the Phillies, both in college and in the MLB. So a lot going on there. I think that is a good starting point for the Phillies. Gray did get the qualifying offer, I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, he did.
The Phillies extending one to Nola and the Phillies actually being on the other end of a qualifying offer for once and forever, I think it hurts a little less this offseason. So I don't think it's as big of a problem as it was in years past.
Yeah, for sure. I think with the way the CBA is, I think with Nola, if Nola leaves, we get a fourth back. Yeah. And if we sign Gray, we give up a second. So, like, you're still giving up more than you get. But at the same time, like, this is your window. You kind of have to, if you really think Sonny Gray's that guy that's going to help. Obviously, he's not a number two to, like, replace what Nola does. I don't think. Like, you still kind of need another high-end arm. But he's an elite 3, I think. When he's going well, so like you can sacrifice a second round pick for that.
Yeah, I think so. So then Howard Eskin the other day on WIP said, "I'm hearing the Phillies are probably not going to re-sign Aaron Nola." And before we get into that, third report here, some GMs believe the Phillies will let Aaron Nola walk, pivot to Blake Snell. So I think we've kind of believed that Nola's probably out the door, especially when they were so far apart. Reportedly, as much as 4 years and $100 million apart, which is 25 a year. Like that is a significant number. So yeah, I think that was the writing on the wall there. But to me, Snell, I know he's about to win the Cy Young, but there's a lot to not like. Rarely goes past the 6th. I think he did it 3 or 4 times this year where he pitched the 7th and then did not do anything beyond the 7th. And then his walk rates are pretty high. He seems to escape a lot of traffic, but I feel like his ERA being as low as it is because he does not pitch as deep into games as, say, Nola and Wheeler. So, that's a big asset of your bullpen because you're taking away a pretty significant horse and going to a guy who doesn't do that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, even like looking at Sonny Gray too, like none of the guys that you're going to get are going to replicate what Aaron Nola does in terms of he never misses a start and he gives you top 5 in the league in terms of innings. Like I think in the last 2 seasons, he's first by a comfortable margin in terms of innings pitched, including like the playoffs and stuff. Like there's something to be said as frustrating as he was this year. Like he's been an elite pitcher for the last half decade, and he takes the ball every 5th day, and you pretty much know what you're going to get. I know, again, this year was a little up and down, inconsistent, but for the most part, like I think we could kind of pencil in what Aaron Nola is. I don't know if all these reports are kind of like a smoke and mirrors type of thing where they're kind of just feeding all these agendas to get Nola's camp if he really wants to be in Philly to kind of lower down that 8-year contract demand that they're asking because he's what 30? He's going to be 31 during next season.
Yeah.
I don't know how realistic $250 million contract is for a guy that like $250 million 8 years for a guy that's going to be 31 next year. I don't know how realistic they think that is. I think it's part of what the market looks like in terms of pitching. It's not a particularly strong starting pitcher market, but aside from that, I don't know what their angle is.
Yeah, it is it's an interesting story to cover. I would too. I would take Nola over Snell. I know that sounds crazy considering there was almost a 2-run difference in their ERAs this season, but it just feels like long term Nola might work out a little better than Snell. All right, so let's get into it with what we have for this offseason for the Phillies. I have you starting it off here, so I know we got some similarities, but walk us through it here.
Yeah, so Sonny Gray, I think we kind of talked about. He's a Cy Young finalist this year. He's been like pretty. I didn't realize he was 34.
His birthday was yesterday.
He's been a name for a while in the league. If you kind of look at his career track record, he was pretty good. Well, he was very good in Oakland. He's an All-Star, top 3 Cy Young finalist in 2015. His only real like bad year and a half of his career was when he was in New York. So that kind of makes me like a little bit hesitant that the whole market thing. I mean, obviously the fans showed the soft side this year with Turner, but like I don't know how he kind of handle that market. He's thrived in Minnesota, Cincinnati, and Oakland, where like they're not known for being hostile. So
Right.
like that makes me worry a bit. But I think the relationship to Cotham makes me feel comfortable. Arguably his second best year in his 10-year career was with Cotham in Cincinnati. And he like Cincinnati, he was really good there, and that's even more of a hitter friendly stadium than Citizens Bank Park is. So like he's proven that he can get outs in stadiums that aren't Oakland or Minnesota. So I felt pretty comfortable with Sonny Gray. I think Spotrac had his value at like 20 million per year, like a little bit over 20 million. So I think 45, the qualifying offer might, coming off a Cy Young year, I think the qualifying offer might hit his value a little bit in terms of getting the Phillies a bit more favorable in terms of money. But I think if you're going short-term deal, like a 2 or 3 year deal, I think you could overpay a little bit for him. So I have it at 45 million. I probably, if they go this route, I think it's probably going to be somewhere between 40 and 50. I doubt they do 25 million a year for him, but I don't know. They've overpaid for Taijuan Walker last year, so they've shown that they're not afraid to do it. The bullpen was interesting for me because, like, if you kind of look at what they have in terms of relievers, they don't, like, on paper need much. Obviously, relievers from year to year are kind of, you don't necessarily know what you're going to get unless they're, like, the elite. Like, I don't see any need for them to go get Josh Hader. They already have lefties with, obviously, not the track record that Josh Hader has, but, like, the stuff, personality, like the hard fastball, slider. Like, you kind of have that in the Sotos, Alvarados, Strom even. So, like, I don't really see the need to go spend $100 million on Josh Hader. I saw a lot of rumors like the Phillies are going to be in on him. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I did Ronaldo Lopez. He's a righty. I think that might be more of the need just because we kind of saw with Sir Anthony last year. You don't really know what you're going to get. Obviously, Hoffman was good, but that was the first time in his career that he's really been good. So I think the righty was more prevalent. And Lopez was, in terms of his profile, I think he fits the Phillies a bit more. I was between him and Hector Neris. But I just, Linares was really good last year, but as far as stuff, I think the Phillies have kind of, as Dave Dombrowski and his crew kind of got in, they've shown more towards favoring guys who throw a lot harder. And Neris is like 95 and Lopez is like 99. So I think that they'll probably lean that way. I think the slider was pretty good last year in terms of movement and stuff, but his best pitch is his fastball. So I think Lopez is the route there. I like 2-year deals for relievers just because it kind of gives you a little bit more flexibility. I think guys that are good will get more of the 2-year deals, like the Kimbrels and Familias will get the 1-year prove it deal. And the last 2 years, none of those 1-year deals have proven that they can be good. So I don't know. I'd rather go get guys who are a little bit more 2024 baseball than Kimbrel and Familia.
Yeah.
And then kind of looking at the lineup, I saw an article today that it might have been Howard Eskin or Angelo Cataldi. They said that Harper favors playing first base, or he wants to play first base moving forward. So that was it kind of led me to think, what does the lineup need? And obviously we know that they need a righty, but then that lets Schwarber play the DH position full time. And who's your starting left fielder then? I'd rather it not be Christian Pache. And they said that Rojas is probably going to start in the minors to start the season, which I think makes sense after we kind of saw what the bat did in the postseason. So I did Whit Merrifield. He is actually we kind of think that Blue Jays lineup was really, really good. And he was the only Silver Slugger last year from that lineup. So I think Whit Merrifield is a name to watch just because he played a bunch of games in left field throughout his career. Last year, I think he played 81 games in left field, maybe. Yeah, 81 games in left field last year, so he's comfortable there. He's 34, so I don't know what kind of role he's looking for, but he can also play second base on days when Stott needs off, even though we still have Castro and Sosa. He's just versatile, but he can play a bulk of the season in left field, and he's a good top of the order, low end of the order bat. And then kind of platooning him with Eddie Rosario. Rosario had 23 home runs last year, and I think they said that a lot of his down production with the Braves 2 years ago was because he needed eye check. He needed
or something.
Yeah. So the guy, he's a good hitter. Watching the Braves last year a bunch. Obviously, I already know if they sign him, he's going to drive me crazy with the way that he swings at fastballs over his eyes. But I'll take the occasional annoying strikeout for 23 home runs from a platoon bat. That's perfectly fine by me. I'll get over that. So that's kind of my left field platoon. If Harper moves to first base, I was thinking kind of how can we trade Walker or trade Castellanos, but I don't know what you're going to get in return that can kind of replace their value. As frustrating as they are, Walker won 17 games last year, and he adds depth to the rotation. And Castellanos had a really good regular season. So we're kind of talking about how this is the window, and I don't know that anything you could get back for them without mortgaging the farm system to go along with them kind of replaces what they give you in your supposed championship window. And then speaking of mortgaging the farm system, we kind of mentioned that Sonny Gray isn't that Aaron Nola level guy to replace him in the rotation. So you kind of have to go get that other ace. And the Brewers just lost their manager. They lost their president of baseball operations to the Mets. And Matt Klentak is now the assistant GM maybe. So call Klentak back, and I don't know, maybe he'll take Scott Kingery for him and give him another contract. But trade for Corbin Burns. They said a month ago that they're shopping him. I hate to give up Abel. I think Abel's going to be really good. And with Painter out, I think he has a chance to be in the rotation at some point this upcoming year. But to get a guy with Corbin Burns, you can't really, again, harping on the championship window, you can't really pass up that opportunity if he's being shopped. So I'm giving up Nick Abel, Gabriel Rincones, who was a top 5 round draft pick, I think 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
He's a corner outfielder. So like if you're keeping Castellanos, and I think he's kind of blocked here if you expect Crawford and Marsh is here till 2027. So like he doesn't really have a window to play. And same thing with Bergola. We expect Stott to be here for a while, and Turner's obviously here for a while. So like these are kind of expendable pieces that still have pretty good value. I think it's 3 guys in our top 14 of the farm system. So like go get the guy who beat out Wheeler for a Cy Young 2 years ago. Like it just to solidify the rotation. If you could go into a playoff series with Wheeler, Corbin Burns, Ranger, Sonny Gray, like that is an elite foursome for a series. And then not only trade for him, but he's up for this is his last year of arbitration this year. So like if you're going to give up those prospects, extend them. I know they talked about maybe potentially extending Wheeler, but you're going to have money coming off the books soon with Schwarber after 2 seasons, this year and next year. Yep. And then Castellanos eventually. Like you'll have money to spend. The tax is going up. Like just extend Corbin Burns if you're going to give up a haul for him.
Yeah, well, you'll see. I agree with that. I agree with that too. So mine, I was doing a great too. I'm a little cheaper because of the qualifying offer, but I'm also kind of getting a mutual 3rd-year option here to maybe entice him a little bit. So I'm not going to dig too far into that. I thought you did a good job of that. But you're talking about velocity with bullpen guys. So I went after maybe the hardest throwing guy on the market this year, Jordan Hicks. Giving him 3, I know that's a little bit, but he's only 27. So I think giving him a few years is a little more enticing to him as well. I saw the Astros and the Padres were linked to him already, so I've not seen the Phillies brought up with him yet. But I think a righty with a lot of velocity, smart move, a guy with experience closing, but not someone kind of like, I guess, a righty version of Alvarado in a sense where experience closing, but doesn't see himself as a solidified closer, wouldn't get mad if he doesn't close a bunch of games, that kind of stuff. Like just plug him in wherever you need him. You should be okay.
The Blue Jays didn't use him as a closer after the deadline because they had Jordan Romano. So like he's used to that.
Yeah. So I don't see a problem with that. Talk about this whole outfield mess with if Harper does go to first. We talk about Adam Duvall every offseason. I think it's finally time they do it. I know he's a little older, 34, 35. So just 1 year here. Might need to do more than 8. I feel like I might be shortchanging that here. But you can play all 3. He's a righty. I think he had 23 home runs last year for the Red Sox. So a lot of pop, gives you a nice righty and a lot of playoff experience. Won a World Series with the Braves. A guy that's good to have around. So I feel like they need a few more winners on this roster. I know that sounds a little crazy, but it just seems like running out of gas in these critical spots every postseason now. I think another guy that's been there and done that would really help the team. Then I have Brad Miller coming back. Did not play a lot this last year with Texas. Still got a ring out of it, though. He's a lefty, but I think gives you a good backup for Harper, and you could platoon him in left theoretically with Duvall or whoever. So it just gives you another option. And if you're going to lose Rhys Hoskins, I know that's going to be a little bit of a dink in the clubhouse. So bringing back a really likable guy from a couple of years ago like Miller, I think would help that situation, kind of lessen that blow. So that, I thought that was maybe an interesting move they can make. I know he's probably past where he was hitting 20 home runs here 2 years ago, but I think he's still playable and offers you some defensive flexibility. I also have Corbin Burns trade. I know Shane Bieber from the Guardians and Tyler Glasnow from the Rays are also names being brought up in trade discussions, but both of them have more injury history. I don't know. To me, Burns is just the more safe choice, but also pretty good. Probably better than those two, honestly. So it's close. But, I'm starting with Abel and then, Racones, De La Cruz, you name it. Put some of those guys in there, see what happens. Obviously, there's a chance this gets into a bidding war, but there's a lot of starting pitching on the market this year. and you also have Bieber and Glass now theoretically available. So I don't think you're going to get into a huge bidding war for this one. There will definitely be some teams interested, but I don't think it's going to get extreme. So I think, that's a realistic move they can make. With Wheeler probably coming off after the year, it gives you Burns. As I'm also putting an extension in here. I didn't mark what it would be, but definitely an extension. But it gives you Burns, Ranger, Painter eventually, Sonny Gray for maybe another year or two. So it gives you enough to get by, I think, for at least a couple of years, and then regroup, figure out, if someone else will become a free agent, or you'll hit on another prospect that'll come up. So they have some options. I don't think they go crazy on a position player. I don't think
No.
Bellinger's happening. Matt Chapman has been horrible at the plate, no matter how good his defense has been.
Yeah.
His bat just people are going to go because people just go crazy over bats here. We really do not care about defense all too much. It's how you perform at the plate. I just don't think he'd be a good fit here either. And I think he did get a qualifying offer too. Bellinger, if he was a righty, I know it sounds stupid because he's so good, but like if he was a righty, I think they'd be way more aggressive going after him. But you're just you're replacing probably your best righty power bat in Hoskins with then another lefty. And I just think eventually you're getting too many lefties in this lineup. So I just don't see that happening. And really no one, I know they could bring Hoskins back, but none of the other like full-time, like CJ Crone and
it's not like a favorable position player market for like teams.
no.
It's not overly strong. Like Bellinger, obviously, but if Harper wants to play first, like Bellinger doesn't really fit here. So like I don't know. It doesn't make too much sense to me.
Yeah, and the money they have to Turner and Harper, Ohtani's not happening, and the problem is he has to DH anyway, which just makes more of a mess with an already team full of DHs. So that one I don't see happening either. I do think, like you have Merrifield and Rosario. I think combinations of guys like this is what probably happens with the bats they pick up. The bullpen, you have three lefties solidified in there in Soto, Alvarado, Strom. Those guys aren't going anywhere. Dominguez is in. Sounds like Hoffman's in. I'm sure they're going to give Kerkering the chance up here, considering he was on the playoff roster. I think their plan is
still have Kobe too.
Yeah, and he's probably the long man. So
yeah,
you really,
so you really
need
one more
one
righty
spot. Yeah. So I think you need another righty to trust. Look, like some bullpens only carry two or even one lefties. The Phillies have three. You don't need another.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like Josh Hader's so good, and he is a lefty, but he's so good it doesn't matter, I guess. But I just don't, for the amount of money you have to throw at that, no. So I think righty power arm is how that goes. And then I know we talked about this, but it really does feel like they need two pitchers, especially going to let Aaron Nola walk. Look, we saw it in the playoffs once we got to the best of 7 games where Christopher Sanchez was really good during the regular season, but the second he got in trouble in the playoff game, they just didn't trust him, and it became a bullpen game. And
yeah,
I just don't want to do that. I want to go in where if it's the wild card round and I throw Wheeler, Burns, and Gray, I either win that in 2 and then I start Gray in game 1 and those two can pitch, 2 and 3, and then I could maybe theoretically put Ranger Suarez in my bullpen for, a best of 3, a best of 5, and then a best of 7 comes around and I can make Ranger Suarez my, theoretically game 4 would probably be the way rotation set up, like it would be like game 1 or game 2, but I can then put arguably my best playoff pitcher back into my rotation and, have him, and then I'm 4 deep, and it's a lot better than kind of the mess they went through in that Diamondbacks game, which they ended up losing because, it was too many bullpen guys got into the game. So they got to get 4 deep. Taijuan Walker, they didn't trust him this year. I don't know how they're going to trust him next year. They didn't trust him when he won 17 games to throw a single pitch in the playoffs. I don't see how next year when he's a year older, and maybe who knows, but I just don't see them trusting him again next year. So I think you got to get 4 legit options in here you trust. So you have Wheeler, Suarez. They clearly don't trust Sanchez enough. They don't trust Walker at all. I don't know what you do with Sanchez. Maybe make him the long man until Covey to beat it. But I think they need to. That's just I don't care the combination really. If you want to do Gray and Montgomery from Texas, sure, do that. If you want to do Burns and bring back Nola because you can, because Wheeler's coming off the book, sure, do that. I just feel like it's got to be 2.
No, I definitely agree. I think we saw it firsthand, kind of like you mentioned. You just can't go into a playoff series with a scheduled bullpen game and like expect to do well. Like not to hash out old wounds, but like Game 4, Sanchez was good, and the minute somebody got on base in the 3rd inning, they went to your best righty reliever. Like Jeff Hoffman coming in the 3rd inning forces you to have to not force because he shouldn't have been in the game, but like Kimbrel in the 8th because you're out of righties then. It's like it's Craig Kimbrel or Dylan Covey because you had to use a bullpen game and use your best righty reliever in the 3rd inning. Like it's just asking for trouble. You need some sort of depth, whether it's 4 innings, 5 innings out of your starters to succeed in the playoffs, I think. And yeah, I definitely agree. They need some combination of 2. I don't think Yamamoto's a realistic option.
No.
I think his price tag is going to be a little bit too high. And honestly, like we see all these Japanese pitchers kind of get Tommy John, and he just threw 138 pitches like the week before he got posted to free agency. So like,
yeah.
I don't know. He's really good. He's probably the best skill wise best starting pitcher on the market, but I don't know. It's just a different element of inviting when those Japanese pitchers come over.
Yeah. All right, so that's this. But if we want to get a little more into this and a little more fairy tale-esque, I guess is the best way to put it. I mentioned that outside of Bellinger and an injured Ohtani, and I guess Rhys Hoskins, and a batless Matt Chapman, there's not a lot on the position player market this year in terms of starters. So that has surfed. There's been a lot of reports now that like the trade market for position players is at an all-time high, that it's already picked up this year way beyond wherever it was at any point last offseason and maybe the offseason before that. And 2 of the guys, definitely one of these guys, has kind of been at the headlines of that, and that is Juan Soto, who has 1 year left with the Padres, who missed the playoffs, and then all this stuff came out. They needed money loans, and they don't have money and all this stuff. And then the other, of course, is Mike Trout with Shohei Ohtani, 99% leaving the Angels. Will Trout ask out? Will the Angels start to rebuild and try to cut their losses and get what they can for the aging Trout, who still owed 7 years, $250 million, I think, something like that. He has a negative value on baseball trade values for what that's worth. I mean, you're talking about the best player of the generation. He has a negative value just because of the injuries and the years left and the money left. But could the Phillies do either of these? I mean, Soto makes a little more sense just because you have Harper, Turner, Schwarber, Kevin Long. Like, I get that stuff. But I kind of go back to like what I said about Bellinger. He's really good, but he's also a lefty, and he's not very good in the field. So it's just, if he was a righty, to me, I'd be all over this. And I know that sounds so ridiculous of how good he is, but if he was a righty, I'd be all over this. Probably make this my priority 1. But I just think you're making your lineup way too lefty heavy, and especially at the top, because Soto, Harper, and Schwarber are all theoretically like top 3, because Schwarber likes to lead off, are all top 3 in the lineup type guys. So I don't really know what you do. And then of course there's Bryson Stott, who I think you would like to make a top 2 in a lineup type guy eventually. So that doesn't work for me because of that. I'd hate to see him go to the Mets or something though. And then Trout's a righty, so it works a little more. You're taking on a lot of money, a lot of years, and he's been injured the last 3 years. He's not really played a full season. So I don't know what to make of it there. I don't know. I'm interested. I think the answer to both these is no, but I wanted to get your input on this.
Yeah, no, I'm out of them for pretty much exactly what you said. Like Soto is just another hodgepodge lefty bat. I mean, obviously he'd be he'd be the second best hitter on the team, if not the best, behind or with Harper. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's that good. But I think you're not you only do the deal if you're guaranteed an extension because he has what a year left in team control. Is this
Mm-hmm.
his last this upcoming season is his last one? And then
It
if you
is.
do that, then you're following the same thing with Trout, where it's a lot of guaranteed money kind of going into. It doesn't give you any flexibility to build a team around Turner, Soto, and Harper. Like your pitching would greatly suffer, I think. Um, and like the haul to do it without that guarantee of extension would be it would start with Painter and probably Abel. So like I don't really like that too much. Trout, I don't know. I'm so sick of the Trout rumors. Like it's never gonna happen. I think I saw an article today or I saw a post today on Twitter that the Phillies are like out on him. Like they're not even gonna pursue it. So like I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It's just the fact that he's from Jersey and goes to the Eagles games that the only like that's the tie in there. I
Yeah.
think if he really wanted to come to Philly, he would have signed here. Obviously, it's tough to say no to what was like 12, 13 years, 450 million. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd probably say yes too. The name that and this would kill me inside, but like the Mets said they're 50-50 on trading Pete Alonso. Like if Harper really doesn't want to play first base, like I would rather not trade with a division rival, let alone it be the Mets. But like, I think Pete Alonso probably makes the most sense. Like you're replacing Reese at his exact position with a guy who last year his average was horrible, but he hits 40 home runs a year. He drives in 140 guys a
Yeah, he would
year.
protect
Like,
Harper in that 4 spot.
yeah, like it would kill me inside to
Right.
even the thought of Pete Alonso being on the Phillies. But like that, I think his name makes more sense than the other two.
No, it definitely does.
And he's a
I just
Boris
didn't bring him
guy.
up because of the reasons you mentioned. Like people would. I know, like we said, we hated Harper like before he came here, but I don't know.
No, I think it's different. Like I think it's a different type of hatred for Alonso just because like Harper was I think we hated Harper because he was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Like we hate Alonso because he's a Met and he kills us.
Yeah,
Like he's
he's kind of a
good, but
cornball.
like yeah, I think it's a different type of dislike for those two. But I think he makes more sense than Soto and Trout to me.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I guess these two make like 1% sense. He maybe makes like 10% sense. I guess is the best way to
Yeah.
put it. Yeah, I don't see the Phillies being aggressive in the position player trade market just because of the fact you are tied down to so many of your position players for a very long time. I know there was like
You hope to
talk
be tied
about
down to more with
yeah.
Stott and I don't know what they're gonna do with Bum, but I mean I think
I
ideally
think they're just
the
gonna ride Bum
majority of
out. Yeah.
the majority of Phillies fans would like to see Stott here for a while.
Yeah, if one of those guys is getting an extension, it's gonna be Stott. I don't think it'll be Marsh. I definitely don't think it'll be Bohm.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Marsh has even been brought up as like a trade candidate this offseason.
Well, I think that was a lot of that had to do with Rojas regular season and then he did
Mm-hmm.
what he did in the playoffs and Marsh did what he did in the playoffs and I think that's hopefully, at least in my mind, hopefully been put to rest a little bit. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of trading him either. He does have, I think, now with Painter hurt, Marsh actually I think is like most considered like the most valuable player on this team in terms of like a trade chip. Just because he
Yeah, I
plays like all
believe it.
3 outfield spots, he's controllable. He's getting better.
He's the
So
youngest.
yeah,
Like aside from Rojas and now Kirkring, like he's the youngest on the team.
yeah.
He's only
So
24 25. I think he's going to
I
be
think he's
26
going
during
in,
next
he's going
season.
into his 26th year, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
One last question here. JT Realmuto is starting to decline. I don't think the Phillies can continue this 90-10 platoon they do at catcher. The majority of baseball
No.
is now 50-50, 60-40, 55-45. You'll get a couple 70-30s. The Phillies are like the last, the way it feels at least, the last true like 90-10. Like you play the Sunday day game starter at catcher. Is Garrett Stubbs the guy to do I don't think they're going to go to like a 50-50 or a 55-45, but they go to like a 60-40, a 70-30. Is Garrett Stubbs that guy, or is it time to give Marchand a shot, or does this come, I know like Mitch Garver is a free agent. Like what goes on there at catcher, do you think?
I don't think it's going to be Mitch Garver. I think his price tag might be a little bit too much.
Mhm.
Maybe get Nola. Maybe get Austin Nola. I don't know. I'm still sour. Like obviously Stubbs is such a good clubhouse guy, and everybody seems to love Stubbs. But like I'm still
Mhm.
sour after the pool comments. So like
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
know how I want to approach the backup catcher. But like
Right.
I don't know. Like he was good 2 years ago when he played, and then last year he was really bad. Like he went all of August or all of September like without a hit. Like
Yeah,
there was
he
a
hit a
point in time
home
where he
run
went
his
like
last
4 or 5
start of the year
calendar
or
weeks
whatever.
without a hit. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, but like I don't know. I think he calls it an okay game. Like I think he handles the pitching staff pretty well. So it's like with the rest of the offense, you shouldn't really have to worry about the offense from the backup catcher. So like I
Mhm.
guess if he can handle pitchers well enough, it could be a 70-30 type of thing. But I don't know. I know the minute that he's in a game and the offense doesn't perform, it's going to be like, oh, why the hell is this your backup catcher if he's going to go 0 for 4? It's like, I don't know, dude. Backup catcher is not really a priority
Yeah.
when you have the highest paid catcher in the league. Like,
Yeah.
I agree there definitely has to be a split, but I don't think Mitch Garver's the answer because that's just too
Right.
much money.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think it'd be Garver. I think he's the top of the line name right now. Obviously, I think he's going to go somewhere where he's going to
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
anyway. But yeah, Marchand I think is out of options too. But the Phillies are asking for another one
I
because he was hurt or something.
Marchand's been
So
like the guy that was going to get called up for the last 6 years.
yeah. Well, he came up in the COVID year and like played decent, and then never he got hurt and never showed up again for 3 years.
That yeah, that's been his problem. He can't stay healthy, which I mean, that's not his fault really. So like
Yeah.
it sucks to see what's happened to him. But at the same time, I don't think we can be like, oh yeah, get rid of Garrett Stubbs. We have Marchand because he'll play one game and then be out for the season. And then it goes from 70-30 to 100.
Yeah, I think honestly, I don't know how the bullpen would or the clubhouse would take this, but I think most likely Marchand starts here in AAA, and if Realmuto showing signs of declining and they start doing more of a split and Stubbs doesn't play good, like are they going to release Stubbs in the middle of the year and call up Marchand? I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, honestly. I think that's maybe
Yeah,
the most realistic path.
I don't yeah, like we obviously catchers aren't the premium position, so saying this won't be like the shock for the world, but the free agent market for catchers is very weak.
Yeah.
Like Yasmani Grandal was kind of the competition for the whole. I mean, James McCann too, but like when JT was traded or signed, it was like, oh, those are three of the class of the world, and now Grandal is like the best free agent catcher, and he's market value is like 4 million. Obviously, besides Garver, Garver's very good, but like Victor Caratini, Roberto Perez, like it's basically who do you want to hit 180 and handle your pitching staff? Like at that point, just keep Stubbs and save the money.
Yeah, that probably is what's gonna happen. All right. Well, it is still early November. I don't expect a lot to happen till after Thanksgiving. Usually between Thanksgiving and Christmas is when a lot happens. Then the holidays come around, they take a break, and then after January until spring training starts, it heats up again. So I think that's kind of the two windows to look at. So might be a while until you hear from us again, unless something happens or there's a huge rumor.
I feel like the Sonny Gray interest report today, like that's earlier than normal. Like I was sitting here and I was like, I completely forgot free agency started.
Yeah, there has been a few more interest rumors, I think, than usual this early. It is usually quiet until around Thanksgiving, so it's something to monitor. We'll see if something happens, but if not, you'll hear from us the next time something does.